Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast. This is the 10th episode and we cringe.
No, this is me. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast. And this is me hijacking the podcast because every 5 episodes I do that.
You know, my sister listened to the Aristocats podcast and she was like, there was something really off about that. Like, you're not very comfortable doing what you're doing. Do you feel comfortable now?
Ladies and gentlemen!
Okay. Did you think that we would do 10 episodes of this?
I think we are going to do 100 episodes of this. We're never going to stop making these podcasts. There's so much cringe out there.
Maybe the listeners would be glad if we stopped, so we'll see.
Well, the listeners can stop listening. We don't have to.
Jokes on them. We don't have listeners, so it's fine. We can just keep going.
I see that we have some views, but maybe it's just me
it's you and me.
Watching.
Just watching our own fucking podcast videos.
I like it. There's my cat in there.
Yeah. All right, so we usually talk about a movie from my collection. From the 2000s, but today we're going to talk about Remember the Titans, which isn't in my movie collection. It's in yours.
My movie collection, ladies and gentlemen.
You're just going to keep introducing everything you say with ladies and gentlemen. I really like this movie. All right, well, we'll play the music and then we'll get into the movie. You brought this from your collection, and
yes.
Presumably it is on a VHS somewhere at your old home.
It could be a DVD.
Wow.
Yeah, because I watched it on the Disney Channel every time they rerun it, and then eventually, I think that at the grocery store when we went every Saturday to do the weekly groceries, they had a DVD section, and probably I saw it there. And I got it.
Yeah. You know, this is a movie that a lot of people saw in school. Like my sister, for example, really likes this movie and she saw it in school. And I've never seen it for some reason. So
how'd you come during across it? School?
Yeah, like one of those movies that your teacher would maybe show you on the last day of school or something like that when
Which movie did you remember from your school that you saw?
Lots of different ones. I particularly remember our English teacher would show us the best movies he showed us. Back to the Future and Blues Brothers and Wallace and Gromit. Stuff that isn't necessarily educational. It's just fun stuff to watch.
I watch a bunch of movies on the Holocaust.
Okay,
a lot
way
of
to
them.
bring us down.
And then to lift the mood, we watch $1 Million Baby.
Fuck.
When cable became a thing in Italy, we got the Disney Channel, and I was very into just watching what was on the Disney Channel.
That was just on a lot.
They had a lot of movies. I always I didn't mind the series so much, and I had all the Disney movies that were cartoons, like animated movies, I already knew. So when I wanted to watch something new, I always looked for when they gave movies. And it was
when they gave movies.
Yes. When there were movies.
When they showed movies.
Yes. When they showed movies.
They handed out some movies.
And it was the first time that I was allowed to watch movies by myself, that I just choose, I'm going to watch a movie because it's
whatever's
it's on the Disney Channel, so it's safe. So I could be just left by myself.
Okay.
And that's so it's one of the unsupervised movies that I like. And I remember that I saw it, and then I shared it with my parents, and we liked it all. So then it was easy to get it when doing the groceries.
Well, let's briefly summarize what happens in this movie.
Do you want to do the plot?
I can try.
Yes.
I should probably point out that I know very little about history, about race, politics in the US, and I know very little about this movie, specifically about the sports aspect of it. So this will be a disaster. Maybe you'll know how I feel all the time. I think we're in Arizona, but
No,
I would already be
we're
wrong.
in Virginia.
Okay, we're in Virginia. And desegregation is happening in the US, and so they are combining these black and white only schools, and part of that is to, I guess, mix up the colors of the football team. And so one of the things that are that is done is they instate Denzel Washington. He plays a character by the name of Herman Boone as the head coach of the school's football team.
And he came from North Carolina.
Good. And of course that causes some upheaval because Bill Yost, the current coach, who played by Will Patton, is then kind of ousted, and there's loyalty issues and all of that. Eventually, they decide that Yost will stay on as a assistant coach, and they will coach the team together. So this mixed race team of young black and white men. Obviously, there's a lot of tension, and through kind of the sport, they learn to support each other and be friends and win a whole bunch of games. One of the main conflicts in the movie is that kind of the big evil racist suits in the background want the black coach to be ousted, and so they have decided that if he ever loses a game, they will kick him off the team and make Yost the head coach again. And so it's very important that they win all the games, and all of them are very close. And in the end, they make it. But there's a lot of drama and sad things happening during that period. For example, one of the characters is paralyzed due to a car accident, not due to the sport, which is ironic, I think. I don't know. Like, that's my summary of the movie. There's racism, the sport helps, and at the end of the movie, you kind of feel like racism has been solved. And so that's good. I should probably point out that this is based very loosely on a true story. We can talk about how accurate it is a little later. But yeah, that's the movie. Denzel is a football coach, and he gives speeches. And I think that hiring Denzel Washington, who's a very good speech giver, is an excellent choice here. I remember, like, when I think of Denzel Washington, I always think of Training Day, because that's a year after this movie. And in Training Day, he won an Oscar for that as his second Oscar. And there's a moment towards the end of the movie where you can feel like he is about to get an Oscar. It's like like he's gonna do something that the Academy likes, but also he's like really good at acting. And he starts this really long speech about like being betrayed and like, you know, stuff. And he just says, "You disloyal fool ass bitch made punk," and then he just goes into this tirade, and it's so incredibly good. And in this movie, there isn't quite that standout moment, but you know, in a sports movie, you're gonna have the coach give big speeches during halftime and before the game and all of that. And if you get Denzel Washington to do that, I think you might win a bunch of games.
I like Denzel Washington as a choice. He's very calm and grounding, but strong.
You think someone like Morgan Freeman would feel too old?
Yeah, like
even in the
Denzel Washington is thick.
Thick.
Yes. Like it's not
like
slim.
Burly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like he has like I don't know how tall he is, but he looks shorter than what he should be, because it's like it's very like strongly built. So I think that his physical presence, it's very good, because it's also like it seems like
a stern dad.
Yeah, you're not gonna move him like physically and metaphorically.
This movie has major dad energy in general, because literally there's two dads coaching these kids, and you know, like not just father figures, but they're dads of their own kids. And in fact, Their daughters play kind of a significant role here and there. It's fun to have these. I mean, like we're talking about the cast. Denzel Washington and Will Patton are excellent dads. And then there's also all of these like younger characters. Like Wood Harris, for example, I think stands out as Julius.
Oh yeah.
He doesn't look that young. He looks very mature in a way.
He looks very cute.
And maybe that's because of his character, which matures the most of. Yeah. Like along with Gary, there's a good sense of progression into, like, it's a little too quick maybe. Because it's over the course of like, half a year, like a season of football. I don't know how long that is, but like a short period of time. Year. It feels like these are very immature, sort of very influenced kids, like influenced by kind of the racism of the milieu in which they grew up, right? And the situation that they're in. And then by the end of the school year, they're all best friends and they all like stand up for what's right. And, like it's very fast. But it works as a kind of as a movie, like it works really well. And it's a credit to these actors for portraying that so beautifully.
There is, like, the beginning of the movie, they go to this retreat.
A boot camp.
Yes. It seems that there are, like, 2 weeks of boot camp, and they start hating each other so much. And then when they come back, they are, like, all united. Yeah. And I just think that...
Not all of them, but like it starts very quickly.
Yes. I always thought that it is very quickly, but then I went on a few boot camps of my own, and exhaustions do things to you.
You can beat people into submission.
Yes. Yeah. Like, it's really, when you're tired, you accept way more.
If you mentioned the boot camp in particular, but generally this movie, like, there's so many characters, and I think it's a credit to the movie that they all have their little thing. So yeah, you can tell them all apart. They're not just like, like two main characters in the rest of the team. It feels like all of these characters a little bit.
Yeah, and I really like them. One of my favorite characters, for example, is the linebacker. And
I don't know what that is. Please say a name or describe this person.
The very big guy that is like, I'm white trash, so I'm not gonna go to college. Oh, okay. And then Coach Boom is really nice. Like, you're gonna bring me your grades at the end of every week, and it really sounds like.
Which we never really see until the end, right? Like, it's set up and then it's paid off.
Yes.
And because the movie has to juggle all these different characters, it never really recalls that that's actually something that's happening.
Yes, but also because we don't see Coach Boom private life with the students, but it's nice that it's like set up there that I actually cares about, because he also comes off as a very harsh person, especially in the boot camp.
Like tough love type of thing.
Yeah, it's a bit like
a stern dad, like I was saying. Like, it's like the kind of dad you're slightly afraid of. Like a 70s dad. That's what it is.
But it doesn't seem like you're slightly afraid of, because, like...
He beats you.
Yes, it's like he's fair. Gonna make you run miles.
Yeah. My job... I recently changed jobs, and I'm currently producing a Swiss newspaper, and there are some days when all I do is produce the sports pages, and it is the most annoying thing to do for someone who has no clue about sports. I just sit there trying to figure out like what weird terminology people use, and like I'm supposed to check if like all the scores are correct, but I don't even know how how tennis is scored. How like in tennis you get like these like sets of scores in a row and then someone won, and I'm just like, I don't know, it could be that. It doesn't make sense to me. So just like I felt like this during this movie, actually, particularly at the end, because it's not shot that well. Like the sport is like the sports stuff itself, except maybe the very final like drive that they do.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's called a drive, by the way. The play or whatever, right? There you can tell what's going on, but there's a lot of like I can't tell what's like. For example, when the referees start making calls to make the Titans lose, the reason why I know that is because the movie tells us, not because they show us the play, and then, like, I have no clue what's going on there. He throws a yellow piece of cloth on the ground. That is a pretty weird thing to see.
To me, like, what I like about sports movies, not really the sport that they are playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard work. It's like it's physical hard work.
Yeah.
And
you like watching people train for like a specific goal?
Yes. It's I don't know. I always wanted to be one of these guys. Like, I wanted to be Rocky, or I wanted to be one of the Titans. Like, I wanted to do these, like, exhausting trainings. But growing up, it was always like, oh no, you're tiny and you're female and you're weak, so there is no hope for you. I was like, Mom, maybe I can be strong if you guys give me a chance. So.
And you feel like the movies empower you to put yourself into that situation?
Yeah, I kind of
imagine
like
yourself
do it vicariously through the movie.
Okay.
Because I wanted to play rugby when I was young, and I wanted to play hockey, and I wanted to do all these sports that require like so much like dedication and pain and strength. Mm-hmm. And I always got like, now you're cute, go do figure skating.
Okay.
And
so this is escapism, essentially.
Yeah.
The last movie or the previous movie that you suggested for this podcast was The Aristocats, which is from 1970. And now you bring this movie that's 30 years older and we're still in the 70s. What's your fascination with the 70s?
I like the colors.
The colors of the 70s, were they different?
They are more like earthy tones. Everything is a little bit with this kind of old filter.
You like sepia?
Yes. And
why the 70s then?
the sepia version.
Sepia is the 20s.
But it's not sepia, it's like sepia but in Technicolor.
I mean, maybe some of the listeners will understand what you're saying, but I mean, what you're saying is you want a brown hue on your image.
Yes.
Okay. Is it important to be set in the 70s then?
No.
Like,
I think that the style is very nice, like the clothing and the music.
like the fashion and the music?
Yes,
Okay.
that's very nice. One thing that is very 70s from this movie that I really like is the music.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Before we started recording, I actually listened to the soundtrack on its own again, and yeah, I mean it's good. It's good music. It's good stuff. I think probably the real achievement here is the use of the song that I always say the name wrong, but I think it's called "Na Na Hey Hey Say Goodbye," because it makes a reprise and it's very emotional in the end. So and it goes under in the plethora of songs that are being played and sung and all of those things. So you barely notice that they're setting something up specifically about this song, and that pays off, and it's quite beautiful. But I also feel like they just kind of throw just a bunch of 70s music at you, you know? Like, it's good stuff, but
and I receive it with joy.
I think my main issue is not even specifically the music, like the songs or whatever. It's that this movie has an original score written by Trevor Rabin or whatever his name is, or what it's pronounced. And he's an excellent composer, and he writes a lot of fun music. I really like his National Treasure soundtrack. And I was excited about this specific fact that he wrote the music for this. And so then to hear all these songs that aren't his music, it just feels like they're wasting a good composer.
But he wrote the theme of which when they run and they go and get the touchdown, and it's ta na 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 na.
No,
you wanna run with it.
But that's what I'm saying.
You're gonna run to the touchdown.
This is what I'm saying, though. I am saying he could have carried this movie without 70s music. And you know, on the Titanic episode, you said that you liked that the Celine Dion song was essentially written together with James Horner so that it fit into the movie. Wouldn't it be great if they made 70s style songs for this movie?
But the point is that you said that this is loosely based on the true story.
That's true. It would be kind of weird if that fictional music.
True. And
That's
I like
true.
the fact that they bond on music and they sing together.
Yeah.
And it's also nice when the character that is played by a very young Ryan Gosling, when he tries to bond with his roommate that is an African American guy, and he makes him listen to country music, and he's having a good time, and the other guy is not having it.
It's very stereotypical, though. It was almost a little annoying.
But I think it was funny because
it works, yeah.
The character played by Ryan Gosling, that is Alan.
Why are you so obsessed? You keep mentioning Ryan Gosling, even though he's barely in this movie. Why are you? I want to talk about Ryan Gosling. Do you think Ryan Gosling is a good actor? What movie has he been in that impressed you?
La La Land.
His acting or just the movie? Because I saw La La Land and I didn't think he stood out at all.
No, Emma Stone stood out.
She was excellent.
Yeah.
But she's excellent.
The movie is very nice.
The movie is fine.
He has that scene in which he takes his shirt off.
So it is, but that's what I'm trying to say. He's a very pretty man.
Yes.
And that works in his favor.
Yes.
Not because, by the way, I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he's very good comedically. We see it a little bit in this movie.
Yes.
But we see it, for example, in like the Nice Guys, I think it's called, where he and Russell Crowe are just like a weird comedy buddy cop type thing, like where that's so weird and funny. But then his biggest accolade is probably Drive. And I didn't get like Drive. That. Like, it's just him staring at things without expressing.
Think what I like about Ryan Gosling is that it's like a hot goofball.
Yeah. He kind of looks like a nerd who just happens to be attractive.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I just think that Alan character really works because it gives like a little bit of comic relief that we do need.
Desegregation is a thing that I don't know enough about to really talk about. But we have to talk about it a little bit in the context of this movie. I think the movie is good at giving you the gist of it. And maybe even making you curious, which I think is why this movie might be shown in schools. Because it's very Disney, it's very PG. It's like it doesn't show the real ugly side of racism. But it will tell you, like, all of this happens. It was like a big deal and, that kind of thing.
Growing up, you always, see in the news that there is, racial crime,
racially motivated crimes?
Yes. This kind of things happening in the US, and it's like, why are they still so racist? Because when you think about the Civil War, it seems so long ago, because Gone with the Wind, it seems so old.
Yeah.
And then I watched this movie and I was like, well, this was the 70s. It was not so long
40
ago.
years ago.
My parents were teenagers.
Yeah.
And so if I think about, if my dad was a teenager when these things were happening, it would probably feel kind of weird and new, for this generation. So now I kind of get it why they have problems, because they waited so long to try to solve them.
There's just a long history of problems, and you can't just walk away from them the next day, even if you want to.
Yeah, so it made me realize that desegregation was kind of way more recent than I thought.
I think one of my favorite things in terms of how these issues are depicted in this movie is when, after one of the games, Sunshine invites some of his black colleagues into a bar. And the reason why I like this is because Sunshine doesn't realize that he's wrong. This is because you could very easily just have made all the characters hate black people, right? But the point here isn't really that you shouldn't hate black people. It is about accepting that people have had very different experiences from you, and you have to listen to them. And so when they go into this bar, he swears to his black friend who says, like, this is a terrible idea. We shouldn't go into this bar. I'm telling you, I know this. He says, like, just go in. You got me, you know, like kind of a white savior thing, even like I protect you or whatever.
Yeah.
They go in, they get refused service. They go out. And now Donald Faison's character, Petey, is angry at Sunshine. Yeah. And I think that is a very good lesson kind of to teach people, like in terms of, like, you know, it wasn't really Sunshine's fault that they got refused service, but his demeanor and his attitude towards this problem and his refusal to accept that other people have struggles he doesn't, I think that is a very important thing to like tell people, much more important than don't hate black people, because that's an obvious thing.
But I don't like that scene because it doesn't seem in character with Sunshine, like personality. Because it seems like somebody that is not so patronizing, like he is with Petey at that time.
See, I think people can make these mistakes very easily. Because they haven't been taught these things, and so they make that mistake, and they learn from it. I think it's fine. Like,
so even somebody that is cool could accidentally be patronizing and learn from it because it's just like the first time that he's been exposed to this.
Yeah, of course. And again, this isn't about his character. This is about his experiences. He hasn't had enough experience with this issue to understand it.
Yeah, because he comes from California.
Right, and people who don't understand things don't know that they don't understand them, and so they will make mistakes. That's what happens. And then you take that opportunity to teach them, and that shows character, if whether or not they accept that lesson, right? Because they can also be arrogant about it and say, you know, like, I didn't do anything wrong. And I don't think that's what Sunshine does. And so it's not
I think he's
out
mortified.
of touch with his. Yeah, because he learned something new that he couldn't fathom before, and that's kind of the ugly truth behind racism. Is it's unbelievably cruel, so you could barely imagine it, yet it is still a crazy, enormous, big problem in our society in 2023, right? Like, and that's the point here, and that's why I like this.
I think that it has the message of we live in a racist world and we cannot really do much about it, but we can change how we treat the people around us, and this is what is going to make the biggest change in the long haul.
It is true. The scale is very small, right? Like, they're not campaigning for equal rights. They're just playing football. But it's like they're behaving as decent human beings amongst themselves, and on an individual level, that's the most important thing.
And I think that this goes with like a lot of problems of our society, because if you just see the problem, like racism, it's like, well, it's too big. I can't do anything about it because it's just too much. But if you just like, well, in my like little world, I'm just gonna be a good person, and I hope that this gonna just plant seeds.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was also made before the term systemic problem was widespread. So it makes sense that they would go onto the individual level where you can't solve systemic problems. While we're talking about history, maybe we should talk about historical accuracy a little bit. Because again, I know very little about history, but this movie is based on a true story, so I at least skimmed the Wikipedia page. Let's put it that way.
I didn't know that this movie is based on a true story.
Doesn't it say it at the beginning?
I thought that this was part of the movie already.
Because in theory, if you're making a movie, you're allowed to just lie and say based on a true story.
I don't know. I just thought that like the first kind of scene was, well, okay, so now I'm gonna settle in and I'm gonna live like this is the 70s and this is happening.
Well, in a way, you didn't miss much, because a lot of kind of the details in this story weren't like that. I think the biggest, kind of most obvious thing to me seems to be that the Titans were really dominant in that season. So a lot of the tension wouldn't have been there especially this kind of for Denzel Washington's character to like have to worry about getting kicked off the team and having to move again and all of that, because they were very successful. So, you know, like how much is it then a true story if you're just taking all of these historical figures and tell a different story with it? The Gettysburg thing never happened either.
It doesn't seem so bad, because we also see him say, "I was the youngest of 13 children, but everybody was counting on me. So now you have to go there, out there, and everybody's counting on you, Ronnie." And you can do it. And then his assistant asked him, "Were you the youngest of 13 children?" He's like, 8. "Oh yeah, but 13 sounds better."
So it's like a little nudge towards kind of like, this is what we're doing here.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough.
One thing that I think contributes to me loving sports movies is that they're very good at a good montage. And there is always this kind of, either it's a training montage that I think is my favorite, but in this case,
the Rocky thing.
Yes, It's like he's getting so strong, and there is the music and everything. It happens, but in this case, it's just the season starts and they have the first 2 games, and then they start having their own little.
So she's gesturing, which is not good for a podcast. So you want to verbalize these?
They start like getting their groove on.
Yeah.
And then the montage starts, and we just see them like being goofing around because they're teenagers after all. And then they win games, and we see the city and the games and the cheerleaders and the dancing, and there is a nice song, and you just want to be there. You want to be a Titan.
Okay, you got a point there, or
Montages are the best.
Okay, I think montages are the better version of a musical number, because musical numbers, again, they're kind of lazy to take away having to write a scene where you express feelings and things like that. Whereas montages, they're just like, they're oftentimes very minimal on dialogue. There's a lot of music just kind of driving you somewhere, and that's fun. If it's like measured well. A montage that's too long is a waste as well. Like, you don't want to overstay your welcome. It has to be concise, right? It has. If you see too much of the same thing over and over again, for example, like it's in this movie.
No, I think I could watch a 3-hour movie just of montages.
Yes, but it wouldn't be this, like, you wouldn't see the same scene over and over again, right? Like, if you see Rocky training on like an elliptical, like the next thing is not him on like a slightly different elliptical.
What do you mean with like why an elliptical? Why did you choose the lamest piece of equipment?
I was thinking of Michael Scott's training montage. But my point, of course,
like,
here...
I want to watch a Rocky on an elliptical for 3 hours. Like, this is hilarious.
Okay, bailing out. So what I absolutely hate about this movie is the little girl. Bill Yost has a daughter, and she is like a miniature football coach. And that's kind of her thing. Mm-hmm. But throughout the entire movie, except for a few little things which are fine, the whole thing about her is, haha, look at this kid behaving like a grown-up. And it just wears off quickly.
This girl behaving like she's a tomboy.
Right, that works the first time also as an empowering thing, as a kind of a subversion of expectations about kids, especially because there's interaction between her and Denzel Washington's daughter, who is completely kind of the stereotype of a white girl playing with dolls and all that. And it's like, that's interesting. But a lot of her is like acting like a miniature coach, and that as a joke doesn't work for as long as they tried to make it work.
Yeah,
and I hated that.
I agree with you. So the thing that I absolutely love about this movie...
No, you have to hate something.
Okay. There are 2 puke scenes.
You hate puking?
Yeah.
Ludovica doesn't do well with puke.
No.
And
I'm very scared of puking.
We'll stop talking about it now.
And so there are 2 puke scenes, but
Apparently
people
not.
don't be scared about it, because the second one is just like... it doesn't show. It's not shown visually. It's just you hear it. So that's it.
You want to talk more about puke?
No.
Why did you keep talking then?
Because I wanted to reassure people that it's not too much.
You would like a website like doesthedogdie.com, but it's like isttherepuke.com?
Yes. So I'm just...
this is the podcast for you.
So people, don't worry.
What did you absolutely love?
The boot camp.
Just the whole thing?
Yes.
It's a good sequence. I think it's probably the strongest one in the movie. Because we're at that point where we're still not quite sure what this movie is. Like, and how these things are going to work. And we see a lot of kind of like... I also think that like the two coaches are not as stereotypical as they could have been in a way.
You know, like a stereotypical coach?
Yeah, like a kind of like a gruff guy who like... There's moments like, for example, in front of the bus where Denzel says like, who's your daddy?
That's not
like,
nice.
No, but he's doing it in this strange, unusual, like, you know, he's like very calm. Whereas the typical thing is for coaches to yell at people.
Yeah.
And Denzel doesn't really yell at people.
Nobody yells.
He gives
in this
speeches,
movie. Yeah.
right? And but even in the scenes where you would yell, he gives speeches. Except at the very end, I think he yells at a referee.
That's very funny,
fun,
though.
Yeah.
It's a very funny scene.
So that's good. I like the boot camp as well. It was interesting because it had a lot of kind of comedic potential as well, because he pairs them with each other and everybody kind of doesn't like it, and they fight over which poster to put on the wall and things like that.
Yeah, and also then, like, so what's your mom do? Wait, do you have a mom? What does your dad do? Wait, does he have a job?
Yeah,
and something like that.
It's like there's this actually painful undercurrent of, you know, these questions are kind of racially motivated as well.
Yes.
But at the same time, it is funny.
Yes.
If
because
you're allowing
we laugh at the people that are being more racist.
Right. We don't laugh at the people that are being asked racist questions.
Yeah.
That's true. And then there's the whole Gettysburg, like at night they go there's an inspiring speech, and that all, you know, Denzel Washington giving speeches.
I just actually, like, I think it's my least favorite part of the boot camp, but I can't really take a part of the boot camp that is what I absolutely love about the movie, so I just take the whole boot camp as it is.
The thing I absolutely love about this movie is Will Patton. Will Patton, who plays Bill Yost, I think outshines even Denzel Washington in this movie. He is so good at playing a reasonable man. Like... He reminds me of Robert Duvall in the Godfather movies, like the consigliere, like the kind of German or Dutch guy, the guy who's not Italian, right? Like, who is like, he's there and he doesn't like what's going on.
But we are gonna talk about this the next time I get a movie, so.
No, I'm talking about Will Patton here. Yeah. He's there. He doesn't like what's going on. But he's also open to the possibility that this isn't as bad as he thinks it is, or that this could work out. And he's open to like cooperating and figuring it out and being reasonable about it. He has that smiling face most of the time, even when he doesn't like things.
Yeah.
Because that's a reasonable thing to do, is not to tell people I hate this. Right? And it's such a good performance.
Yeah.
And I wish he was in more good movies.
Because we all know that he hates the old situation that he's in.
At least at the beginning.
He wants to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
It's like every card that he has been dealt at the beginning of this movie is unfair to him.
Exactly. It's unfair. That's the main... He didn't do anything wrong.
But he knows that the bigger picture is that... It needs to be reasonable with
right,
it.
And then he stays on because he realizes that these kids were going to ruin their future if he leaves, just because of solidarity with him. And he's like, I have to stay here. And it's a really good performance in a movie full of performances that carry it. I think a lot of this is very stereotypical. The quote-unquote action, the sports scenes are filmed poorly, in my opinion. So... I got to give huge credit to Will Patton for shining above all of that.
Thank you, Will. Will this movie remain in my collection?
Or... If it was my collection, no. But because I had an okay time with this. But I didn't really want to watch this because I knew it was a sports movie, and the movie didn't really change my mind. It's a movie that's primarily about sports. And there's a lot of stuff, like, it's filmed in a way that doesn't help me understand what's going on. So there's a lot of me just kind of figuring out what's going on based on the vibe, right? And that's
how I deal.
I prefer movies movies about things that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
However,
can I keep it?
Well, I think that as a movie, it's not it's not poor. Like, I just praised all the performances, for example. That alone would be enough to say this is a movie worth keeping. If you're like content to watch a sports movie. So it's a good sports movie. I just don't like sports movies.
Whoa! It survived.
All right. And that brings us to the end of the podcast.
So what are we watching next week?
Next week, we're watching Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because its sequel, I think, comes out tomorrow? No, it just came out. I have to, because we record a little bit in advance, I have to check the calendar. But yeah, that will...
Apparently, it's an animated movie.
It is an animated Spider-Man movie. That movie came out of nowhere. When I was just like, what is this animated Spider-Man movie that apparently was in cinemas? And it was one of the... I watched this. This came out just around the time when we met. So
nice.
I remember it was one of the newer movies in the collection. And it was one of the biggest, most pleasant surprises in that respect.
But
right
not
after
as much.
meeting you.
Exactly.
No, all right. See you next week.
Bye.